Boomer, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys hanging in?
We're doing okay. Greg stayed out for the game, so Greg in San Francisco this morning. So you've got Courtney Curtis and Wiggy. But what happened last night?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, a lot happened and a lot was going on with that offense of the Patriots. The Seattle Seahawks defense just basically took them apart. And there are a number of reasons why. If you have a vulnerability at left tackle, it's going to be a long, long night against a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence. If you have a quarterback that seems to be locked up mentally, which I thought Drake was. I didn't think he played with any rhythm whatsoever. I guess he took a shot in the shoulder, which could have led to some of the inaccurate throws early on in the game. And, the Seahawks turned out to be the better team. And really the key, anytime you play in any of these games, is don't turn the ball over. And Sam Darnold, who has been a turnover machine this year, got away with a couple early throws that almost were pick, and had those balls maybe been picked, maybe the game would have been different. But I just thought it was a tremendous performance by Kenneth Walker, a tremendous performance by the Seattle defense, and really Josh McDaniels had no answer for Mike McDonald's defensive intensity, pressure, and blitz packages. They just could not pick them up.
I'm glad you brought up Drake looking different than we've seen in the past, whether it was the shoulder getting shot up or what. I was just talking to Wiggy about the fact that he looked rattled, and that's something that Drake hasn't looked all season long. Even if he's having a bad game, he seems to be able to rebound nicely. Last night, he just wasn't able to do that. Do you think that the lights were too bright?
I don't think that's the situation. That could be part of it, but, when Seattle started blitzing and they started getting home and Drake Maye was not seeing the blitz and was not reacting to the blitz, I could think of 2 times Witherspoon came off the open side, the slot side away from the tight end, and you could see the slot receiver, whoever it was, whether it be Steph Diggs or Booty or whoever was in that spot, was looking for the ball coming off the line of scrimmage, and the ball never came. So to me, either he's not prepared, they did something that they hadn't seen from them, or he just froze mentally. So there's 3 different combinations of things there. But I'm thinking that Josh McDaniels on the sideline would be talking to him and saying, look, this is what they're doing to us on third down. This is what they're doing to us to an open formation. And they just never had an answer for it. They never adjusted to it. And if you're the play caller and you're trying to calm your young quarterback down and you have that vulnerability on the left side of your offensive line and you're trying to do whatever you can to help Will Campbell. Now, by the way, I'm not here to kill Will Campbell because, he came back from an MCL injury. And that's like one of the hardest things to do if you are a left tackle going against some of these defensive linemen. So this was the gauntlet of defenses that the Patriots had to go through to validate their weak or strength of schedule discussion going into the Super Bowl. And for the most part, they answered the question. But remember, going into this game, they had only averaged 18 points per game in the playoffs. And I think last night, this defense was just way too much for them to handle.
Boomer, I think the biggest question moving forward, because you're right, there was the play when you said Pop Douglas was pointing to the guy coming off the edge and he didn't see it. But I think the biggest question that, we're going to have, I think a lot of people are going to have nationally is, can Drake Maye, I know it's only his second year, but can he get it done in the postseason? And Courtney said, are the lights too bright? He had a great regular season, but all the way throughout the playoffs, he just hasn't looked comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, I don't know how many times he got hit last night. He probably got hit at least 18 or 19 times. That's no fun. Some of it was his fault because he wasn't reading the blitz, or maybe it wasn't something that was in their offensive package. I don't know. I can't imagine that Josh Allen would put a quarterback out there without having answers for a blitz. You get to me once, okay, I understand that. You out-coached me, you outmaneuvered me, but I have to make sure that my quarterback's going to be protected from that blitz. The problem was there were a couple 4-man rushes that they weren't able to protect either. So I don't, Drake Maye's going to be fine. Nobody expected them to be here. I expected them to be in the playoffs. I think we all did, given, who the coach was, who the coaches were, and, who the players were that they brought in, the money that they spent in the offseason on free agency. And it really, truly was an unbelievable year. But it was a grind in the playoffs, and we knew it was going to be, given the fact that they were playing the Chargers, the Texans, the Broncos, and the Seahawks. Those are 4 of the best defenses in football, including their own defense that they see on the practice field. So I'm not worried about Drake Maye's future. That's like the least of my concerns. What I have to do is I have to shore up that offensive line, and I have to make sure that Will Campbell is 100% healthy coming back next year and him realizing, and I know he is because I know he's the kind of kid he is, realizing that, his playoffs were just as bad as Drake Maye's.
You brought up Will Campbell again, Boomer. So I don't understand watching that game how you do not bring another lineman or a tight end to help him throughout the course of it. From the very first series, Will Campbell was getting pushed right into the lap of Drake Maye, which prevented Drake Maye from getting into any rhythm at all.
They tried. There were a couple chip plays. They had a couple tight ends over there. There was a couple running backs that I think Ramondre Stevenson came over and tried to help and chip. But ultimately, here's the other thing. Drake Maye has got to process things a hell of a lot quicker. One of the things that I was talking about on our kickoff show on Saturday morning was there's a tendency to hold on to the ball. And if you hold on to the ball, it's going to lead to bad things. And Drake wasn't processing the game fast enough. And I think Chris Collinsworth really did a good job of explaining, like, all they're doing is playing defense. He's got to anticipate some of these windows and some of these throws. And he made a couple nice throws towards the end of the game. But the other thing, too, is like that interception down the middle. Like, that's inexcusable. I mean, that's stuff that rookies do in week 1 of their career, not in the Super Bowl. And especially when it wasn't called for at that point in time. That wasn't desperation just yet. So those are things where, he's not reading it right. He's probably playing the game too fast. He's been hit so much leading into that it definitely had a profound effect on him. And he was having a little trouble getting away from that pass rush. But again, holding on to the ball, not deciphering things quickly and not getting rid of the ball. I don't ever remember Tom Brady having a game quite like this. I mean, this was really frustrating to watch because there were times where he just would drop back and it didn't look like he was ready to throw the ball at all. And he ended up taking a sack. And that sack and fumble was another huge play. So the turnovers that were caused by him directly and the lack of turnovers caused by the New England defense ultimately leads to a crushing defeat.
Well, it's going to be all Drake all morning, and it's time to get to this week's Drake Take from Boomer Esiason, presented by your favorite New England Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive. Is there any positive that you can take away from Drake playing in a Super Bowl in his second season and getting a loss like that as a quarterback? How can you grow from that and take that into the future of your career?
He seems like a really good kid. So early in my career, I went to one Super Bowl. Dan Marino went to one Super Bowl. I don't think either of us ever took it for granted. But to make it to a Super Bowl, a lot of things have got to go right. And, a lot of things went right for the Patriots this year. I think it's an unbelievable, great learning experience for him. He'll never take it for granted. He'll come back and he'll be ready to rock and roll next year. I'm not too worried about this. This is a long, sustained career that we have in front of us. I think that they have a good enough team and certainly have the coaching staff to be able to, get back. They're not losing any coaches this year for the first time in a long time. They don't have to hire any new coaches. Now all they have to do is kind of retweak some of the roster spots that I think that they probably feel that they're weak in. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them right back in the mix again next year.
Boomer, one of the things that I felt like I wish Josh McDaniels would have did a little bit early, and we talked about this when we were out at Media Row this week, is I wanted to see them come out and be a little bit aggressive in the sense of maybe going no huddle, going empty, getting the ball out of Drake Maye's hands quickly. I know when they did that, they were able to get the touchdown to Matt Collins. Is that something that you looked at and go, man, maybe Josh probably could have done that a little bit earlier?
Yes, I was frustrated by the lack of, I don't want to say energy, maybe rhythm is probably the right word, that the Patriot offense did not have any of it in the first half. And I'm thinking that was another frustrating thing for me. I thought, it's like I said, it's hard to call plays if your quarterback is not playing his best. And, it was interesting. Tom Brady had a story this week about one of their Super Bowls, about how he was out to dinner with his family on a Friday night before the Sunday game. And he wasn't feeling great about their red zone package, so he met with Josh McDaniels on a Friday night, and they redid the whole red zone package, and it turned out it worked for them, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily know that relationship between Drake and Josh is there just yet, where Drake can basically take over a meeting and say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I like. That's really up to Josh right now, dealing with a second-year quarterback and only being with him for his first year, but look, he came second in the MVP voting. He had a great season. He got hurt in the playoffs. He played through it. He played like a man. He ran the ball when he needed to. It's just that he finally, ran into a much better defense that he had seen the previous 3 games.
Boomer, the highlight of the broadcast for me obviously happened before the game because that was a disastrous performance for the Patriots. Rodney Harrison in the face of Coach Tony Dungy about the snubs of Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, and Dungy squirming, not actually announcing what he did. If indeed Dungy did not vote for both of those guys, what would you have to say about that?
I would just say it's disappointing because he, of anybody else, would know just how difficult it is to do exactly what Bill and Robert Kraft have done here. I was saying on our other show that, given all the Super Bowl wins under the stewardship of Robert Kraft, who at one time was a fan of the Patriots, and they've had all this success, it's mind-boggling that both of them didn't go in. I was happy for Roger Craig, but the voting has to be changed around. Like I've told you guys, in 2025, they changed the voting. They changed the criteria for the coach. I mean, they should have a separate coach one. They should have a separate contributor one. And then they could do the 3 or 4 legend players if they want and never run into a situation like this. Yeah, but Rodney stuck up for his coach. He stuck up for his owner, so I wouldn't expect anything less than that.
And now it's time for the question of the week for Boomer, presented by McFarland Energy, the region's most dependable provider of home heating, oil delivery, and expert HVAC systems at McFarlandEnergy.com. Boomer, a lot of people talking about Christian Gonzalez. He looked great yesterday, up for a contract extension this offseason. How much is he worth, and how much should Robert Kraft pay him?
A lot. A lot. He's a great player, and he's exactly who they drafted. They wanted a shutdown corner. His game yesterday was incredible. I thought, obviously the defense played well. If they had any sort of support from the offense for the first 3 quarters of the game, there's no way, they're going to score 29 points, but 17 points came off of turnovers anyway. So, he's going to be the highest paid. I would think he'll be the highest paid cornerback in the history of the NFL. I mean, coming off of this playoff performance, the defense playing as well as it has, there's nothing more important in this league than a shutdown corner, and certainly Christian Gonzalez, boy, did he shine last night. He looked great. He made so many plays. It's too bad he didn't intercept the ball down on the goal line against Jackson Smith and Jigba, because he had that ball in his hands. That would have been quite the interception at that moment.
Yeah, he would have had to get up and run it back 100 yards, though, based on the way the offense was playing. Boomer, I have to say this is my last one for me. Great minds think alike, because I was pushing that narrative when I was down at Media Row. Separate categories for players, coaches, and contributors. Contributors got their own little area, coaches the same way. And I also said former players, executives, coaches, scouts vote. I don't get why the NFL or the Hall of Fame, whoever's making these decisions, can't do that. I feel like it's as simple as it can be. And that's why I think, quarterbacks and tight ends are the 2 smartest positions on the field, because we came up with these ideas.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, the reason that the Hall of Fames use the media members is so that there's always a media presence about the Hall of Fame out there. They want promotion. They want people who cover the league to be able to always be talking about the league. That's one of the reasons why baseball has so many voters and all those writers, because, they want articles written. They want promotion. That's why who's voting. That's basically. And then add a couple guys, like a Tony Dungy or an ex-player or two that you feel like, is somebody that you believe in. That's why they add those guys. But yeah, I mean, just the whole criteria that got changed in 2025 created this whole mess. And, when you think about other great coaches who are not in the Hall of Fame, what about Mike Shanahan? What about Tom Coughlin? I mean, a lot of these people should already have been in the Hall of Fame, but because of the way they do the voting, unfortunately, they keep locked out. And I would just say this whole thing surrounding Bill Belichick, I think, will force a change.